There is a new world order being planned to seize economic and physical control of this entire planet. Many people are asleep. They have no idea this is happening around us. But I'm here to try to inform people how it's very important that we understand that it is an attempt to completely enslave all of mankind. They're going to attempt to form a global economy there whereby it will be all electronic. There will be chips implanted into people's hands or forehead, or they have a lot of new technology. But they want to, it will have your identification, it will be GPS, they will know who you are, where you are, and it will have all of your financial records, the money that you earn and the money you spend. And there will be no way for anyone there will be nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. You will be part of this system, or you will be eliminated. They want total control over the entire population of the planet. But we need to know what's coming at us. We need to prepare to resist, and we will. So I'm going to go into other details, like question: what is the New World Order? It has been in the process for generations. The founders of the UN, the United Nations, are the international banking family members, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and so forth. They own and control the Federal Reserve. They were behind the United States dollar becoming the global reserve currency. They were behind the dollar becoming the petrodollar, where they made their power comes from the money. They have, in fact, been creating over $1 trillion a year over the last 4 years. Their expense to make a $100 bill is 3 cents paper and ink. They then create the money, the Federal Reserve notes, and our government gets them and pays interest on them. That's why in the 8 years of Obama's regime, our country's debt went from 6 or 7 trillion to 18 or 19 trillion. Our country went into debt. The United States of America went into debt. 12 trillion in 8 years, that's $1.5 trillion a year. How do you go into debt? It's simple. You spend money you do not have. The spending of money you don't have was money that was taken to the Department of Treasury by the Federal Reserve, which, by the way, the term Federal Reserve is no more connected to the federal government than Federal Express. It's just a name for a private-owned banking company that creates all this money out of nothing but paper and ink and is enslaving our entire nation. There is this attempt to take over the entire world is basically their plot, which they've been working on for generations. That the biggest problem they have, though, is the people on the planet who have a far superior form of government, which is the United States of America and the American citizens in our Constitution. And so what has been resulting in the 8 years of Obama's regime, which I know Obama's part of the New World Order. I have speeches, I've listened to him in Europe and things where he talks about how they've been working on this global agenda for generations. I saw pictures of Obama with Henry Kissinger's arm around him. They're posing, and he's like 25. I mean, they groomed Obama. They brought him up through 30 years of being part of it, and he works for them. And that's why our country went into debt during his administration. He was destroying us economically. He was also dismantling our military, laid off 80,000 of our top military brass, which means our military today is a skeleton of what it was when he took office. But the skeleton that remains are those top military leaders who are easily controlled. The ones they got rid of are the ones who are very strong supporters of our Constitution and posse comitatus, where the military will not be used against American people. So, how many people are going to die? Actually, the Americans are about 4% of the world's population, so we're really their biggest problem. They don't care if the entire population of our country is annihilated, as long as they can form their new world order. And so I actually have read prophetic information, which I can go into later, that basically says 2/3 of the population of this country will perish by specific means. That they will, 1/3 of the population will perish in cities by famine and plague. 1/3 will perish in the country by the sword, violence, anarchy, chaos. The 1/3 who survive, which if you want to be part of them people, it says they will be in the mountains. All who survive and escape will be in the mountains. The mountains are the best place to be. It's where fresh water comes out of the snow melt, the springs. It says food and water is going to be scarce. But anyway, the Bible predicts this upcoming day of devastation as a day of great disaster, unprecedented since the beginning of the foundations of the earth. A day of darkness and gloom. The sun will be darkened. Ezekiel 7:5 says a disaster is coming that is unique. Unique means there's only one, not another one like it. And Ezekiel 5:9 says the Lord's coming to do what's never been done before and will never be done again. So you actually become curious. Inquiring minds want to know, well, what's going to happen? Since this warning comes from the Bible, there's a reason why non-Christians should believe in this forecast of destruction, because the Bible predicts a day called the Day of the Lord, which is what it is. The Day of the Lord is described in Joel chapter 2 as a large and mighty army comes, the likes of which the world's never seen before, and there'll never be another one like it again in ages to come. I go, it's a massive modern military attack. Joel 2 says, before them the land lies like the Garden of Eden. Behind they leave a desolate waste. Well, I turned on the evening news a few years ago while California was having a severe drought, and a Sacramento reporter was interviewing a couple of California farmers in the spring, and they were having a dilemma about what are we going to plant where there's no water in our reservoir, no snow in the Sierras. Then the reporter made this comment that these farmers have successfully transformed California into what today is commonly referred to as the world's modern Garden of Eden. I go, that's in the scriptures. That's exactly what that's exactly what's being described. And now this massive modern military attack that's coming absolutely is a United Nations international law enforcement action. It's a group of nations who will be coming into this country in a military action authorized by the UN because they have intentionally framed this nation when George W., who's part of the New World Order, intentionally went into Iraq without UN authorization. Even though he went to the UN, asked for permission, based on a fictitious story about having British intelligence about Saddam having weapons of mass destruction. Well, we've been framed. They now announced the United States, Kofi Annan, Secretary General, officially declared the United States is in violation of international law. Why do we need to know about these details? Why wouldn't you need to know about it? If there is a massive modern Pearl Harbor style military attack coming on this country, which is how war works. The way war works is you don't tell them you're coming. You want to maintain the element of surprise. You want to make your plans. You back up. You get it back and you run at them, you slam into them as hard as you can with everything you got. That's called the day of the Lord in the prophecies. But it is in fact going to be a United Nations international law enforcement action against a nation that has been officially declared by United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan. After George W. went into Iraq, there were no weapons of mass destruction found. They officially declared the United States is in violation of international law. We're breaking the law.
I have a brief question for you, respectfully, Mr. Triplett, and that is, briefly, how does the Bible predict that this is, we've already said, but since the warning comes from the Bible, why should non-Christians believe your forecast of destruction?
Christian or non-Christian, many people who are not informed about Bible prophecy, who are aware of what's taking place on the global agenda or the global arena. For example, Mr. Putin made a 10-point speech a few years ago in Russia, speaking in Russian. But in his short, direct-to-the-point speech, he mentioned how all global security lies in ruins, and the nation responsible for having destroyed all the global security is the United States of America. We're basically being viewed by the whole world as a very big, powerful nation who's going around the world creating a lot of havoc and chaos. And they're saying we have to be stopped. In his 10-point speech, in point number 7, he says Russia doesn't want the chaos to spread. Russia doesn't want war. They have no intentions of starting a war. However, today, Russia sees the outbreak. Global war is almost inevitable. Russia's prepared for it. They're continuing to prepare for it, and they don't fear it.
Real briefly, please, Mr. Triplett, you had mentioned George W. Bush. Is George W. Bush a member of the New World Order?
Absolutely. George W. Bush and George H.W. Bush. George H.W. Bush, you can look him up on the internet. He has speeches talking about we have a real chance at this New World Order. It's a chance where the New World Order is, I'm going to pause this for a minute.